I don't think that they're regular season MVP guys, man.
Don't pull the numbers that you need to win an MVP.
Ultimately, this is why people say that the awards don't matter.
I think guys like Anthony Edwards, SGA, yeah, they never get an MVP, dog. And it's not that they are not good players. It's not that they aren't fantastic players. Y'all might call it glaze. It's not that I don't think SJ nor Ant might be the best player in the world given a specific year one day. It's just when you look at the criteria for what it takes to win an MVP and what they do in their career and how they view basketball going forth when they're there in winning environments, no, that's just never going to be them. I don't see Ant for 82 games doing what he's doing right now, bro. And Ant's an exciting player during the regular season for sure. I've thought Ant was a playoff elevator last year. This is going to be who he is consistently or more often than not. Yeah, he's not going to be that guy to get MVPs. And then I know SGA is a top 3 contender now, dog. I hate to tell you this. That OKC team's only getting better. I think this is the moment where if SJ truly was going to get MVP, he probably wouldn't this year. Maybe next year. So I don't think that they're ever going to be a regular season MVP. Will they be a finals MVP? I think one of them, if they don't get it, what the fuck went wrong? So let's not get it twisted. But I don't think that they're regular season MVP guys, man.
Yeah, I have the same take about Tatum. They don't pull the numbers that you need to win an MVP. When you got dudes putting up 26-point triple doubles on crazy efficiency on a regular basis, and he's not even 30 yet, you're cooked. When Giannis on a regular basis, 30, 13, and 6, you're cooked. Luka, 35, 8, and 8, you're cooked. I don't like those 3 guys specifically. Embiid, he's been averaging like 33, 12, and 5 the last 2 years. Wemby's about to come up. He's about to be off that minutes restriction. I don't know what he's about to average. Yeah, man.
Football offseason is ramping up tremendously. Trades after trades, signings after signings. Who will win next year? Who will succeed? Well, over at Prize Picks, you can succeed if you play daily fantasy. Let's take a look at Prize Picks. We've got some easy numbers here. We got CJ Stroud, my personal MVP, for 4,000 yards on the season.
You can do the whole season? That's crazy.
I'm learning something today, and I'm about to make a 30-minute drive.
And then on the receiving side of things, we've had some moving and we've had some shaking, but I think one of the more guaranteed picks, Moore, for $499.5. Make sure that you place those things early for the football season. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put some change on there. I'm a little scary, so I'm going to just put that for the long game right there. And I'm going to hit place entry. And it is just as simple as that on Prize Picks.
And if you use code LKIB, you guys can get a 100% match on your first deposit of up to $100. Links to everything will be in the description down below. And shout out to Prize Picks for sponsoring this podcast.
I wholeheartedly agree. The way that they do these MVP votings have been so weird. I was going to pull up a year that was random. I was going to pull up the 07-08 MVP and try to use that as reference. But then I found out that LeBron James finished 4th in MVP voting. He got 1 first place vote. He averaged 38, 7, 2 steals, a block, and shot 48% from the field. The Cavs finished 4th in their conference or something like that. And I'm like, I don't know how that's not higher considerations than 4th. I said it a long time ago. We got to take a step back and like have a discussion about how people are interpreting the numbers. SGA is going to get slandered for having good teammates really, really soon, which won't make too much sense. Luka's getting cooked because the style of play isn't conducive to winning basketball, but then if they played another style, they might not even be in this situation, and they act like that's a fault of Luka as opposed to the fault of like the coaches and management. So that doesn't make too much sense. There's so much going on, and people just don't know how to interpret what they're looking at. And then we find out voters like Stephen A. Smith don't even watch the games. So like, where do we really go from here as to how we vote? Ultimately, this is why people say that, the awards don't matter. Like, we'll talk about the finalists in a minute. Giannis isn't in the 3 finalists. He's having a season that would most likely constitute as an MVP any other year. Are we really knocking him for saying, oh, well, he didn't win MVP this year? Like, come on, dog. And I don't know how it's going to shake out this year, but there's probably like 5 to 6 legitimate, I'm just throwing that number out there, 5 to 6 legitimate MVP caliber seasons that have been had this year. and we're gonna knock all those guys because they didn't win it this year.
Yeah, in an era, and it's fine. Oh my God, I can't speak English. The second part of my hot take is, and it's perfectly fine that they won't.
Yeah,
I think truly, if we're going to be the era that talks about we're done with the 90s, the role player of today stomps on the entire era, all that thing, I think we also need to realize that those conversations and mentality need to apply even to the high end of the sport. I say that to say, dog, I ain't gonna lie, we're about to have some seriously damn good teams that don't make it out the first round one day. We're about to have, let alone the conference finals. So when we're talking about players, even, dog, the fact that like some of you guys are mad that even Luka's in the top 3, for example, and I don't want to dive too deep into there, but like a guy like Tatum not on there. Like damn, you know why his numbers look like the way they do. He's trying to win hoops. He's trying to win games. So I think ultimately, when we view these awards, and a lot of people be like, yo, let's make them matter. Let's make them ultra try hard for the MVP. At the end of the day, it's never going to matter, because you're going to tell me there's only 3 guys, in your personal opinion, that are playing at that level. That will never be the case. So you can argue it never was, but it damn well won't be if the floor of the NBA is risen so much. So I think ultimately it's perfectly fine that they won't. If they somehow seen this and seen it as slander, no, I promise you it's not the case. But I guess to tie a bow on this, Souls references this guest a lot. And I reached out to him today, ironically. Shout out Sylvanus for having a controversial Q&A that over time he just kind of spit. And maybe it's not with Jokic specifically, but when a guy like Jokic is essentially the criteria to win an MVP time and time and time again, any season where we're like, nah, it's not Jokic, it's either A, introducing bias, or B, some absurd shit happened. And I ain't gonna lie. It's looking like that's gonna be the trend. Because the only reason people aren't saying Jokic is because what the fuck Luka's doing, or because they're tired of Jokic and want to say SGA.
But you know what's funny? Because we have not named this name, and again, we'll get into that later on. It almost just dawned on me, and I forgot about it, that the last push to the end of the season, the Knicks snuck up into the second place. Jalen Brunson is averaging 29, 7, and 4 boards on 48% from the field and 40 for 3. Like, that's
I would even argue that it doesn't matter on some like, oh, we shouldn't take these awards seriously. It just, when we talk about which seasons will be remembered the most, even historically speaking, it has never mattered who truly won the MVP. Like in 06, what did Steve Nash average? I don't like, unless you're really, really like into basketball, you might know those numbers off the top of your head. But if you remember that season, you are gonna remember Kobe averaging 35. Giannis won the MVP in 2019, but we remember Harden averaging 36. Even on a smaller scale, I even think this season we will remember Luka's season. We will remember Jalen Brunson's season more than Jokic's MVP season, just the regular season. Now, if Jokic goes off in the playoffs, that's a whole different thing. But yeah, going back to 06, like we remember like D Wade winning, going more crazy in the playoffs. So
again, we're gonna what is Josh Hart doing? We're gonna continue this in a second because the awards finalists have come out. But what you're saying is absolutely right. Because what Jalen Brunson has done with all the injuries in New York, like, people are just really, really not talking about it how we should. Give this any other year, oh my gosh, MVP, that guy is MVP. There's still, if you go to the park, go to the barbershop, ask if they feel like Jalen Brunson is better than Kyrie Irving this year or some shit like you'll be really, really shocked. I want to have a conversation about these awards. We touched on them a little bit. I am actually here to say that these awards votes are rigged. These are the finalists for it. We got to get away from trusting these awards. Most notably, that Defensive Player of the Year.
Why?
AD should be on there, man.
Yeah. I know that's... fuck, bro. I hate when I have to call out a Laker being missing, a Laker signing being good, or anything like that, because, but you're an ignorant Lakers fan. I know we're ignorant, dog. But I mean this from the bottom of my heart, man. He should be there. He really should. Not only that, like he's literally like the guy that's outside of the MVP conversation but been hooping. Let alone DPOY.
If you're not gonna give it to Vic, don't put him here. And then also if you do give it to Vic, man, you have just gone against everything in the world. So you can't give it to Vic. I feel like that's the big misstep here. We talked about most valuable player already, but is there anything quick that anybody sees?
Wait, why would Vic not be on there? I just think like when I understand we look at the voters as just one big entity, but every voter is different. So, you know, like if we got a lot of motherfuckers that are voting for Vic as their number one, some voting for Rudy, kind of evens out to the point where both of them are in the finals.
I think the three, by the way, should be Vic, AD, Rudy. I think Bam is fantastic as he was. Probably got hold here.
Isn't it a conversation about who's had X amount of defense? Like team defensive rating plays heavily into these.
Yeah, that's where Vic has like no argument.
So that's why he has less, like he has zero argument. I get the counting stats, and maybe you want to give it grace for the counting stats. Bam is at a top 5 defense right now in Miami, and then I think Rudy is at like a one defense, leading a 1 defense. Although Anthony Davis and the Lakers end up in the mid pack for that defensive conversation, I can't act like some of I think the more analytical advanced stats heavily favor AD. It's just that Vic has the counting stats because he literally is just flying around and there's nobody else down there to play any sort of defense. So if you're not gonna win it, go ahead, slap AD there, make the young fella get another shot. I just think that's a miss. AD has been playing phenomenal this season defensively.
Yeah, AD is one of those guys, and he came out and said he'll never win. If you were gonna pull that up,
that's what he said.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure he said he'll never win one.
Yeah, true.
And I think he's one of those. I did think because he's never going to be the leader in blocks, never going to be the leader in steals. Now he might have done that, but he definitely won't be that now. And yeah, his role just doesn't demand for him to be DPOY. He's always going to have a bit more offensive responsibility. The outlier to that or the argument to that is, but say Vic is there. Yeah, Vic is on a fucking minutes restriction, which is either scary as hell, or it's kind of proven.
That's the Drew Holiday conversation, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Like you'll never win Defensive Player of the Year, but if you ask a lot of people around the league, they would have
defender. Yeah,
it's Drew Holiday.
Oh yeah,
I just think when it comes to these awards, people lie to themselves and act like they don't care about, or that they do care about the outside of the top 2 finals for every position. Like I feel like a lot of voters went into this on some like, all right, 1 and 2 are Rudy and Vic, and then that third vote, hey, whoever you like, Bam or AD. I think with the MVP, that's been the case too. There's always the dude that's winning a shit ton of games, putting up crazy stats. That's typically at 1. You typically put the dude who's doing the carry job, putting up insane numbers, probably the best in the league at 2. And then that 3 is kind of a toss-up between like 4 to 5 names. I just think that's how it's always been. So I just don't know what voting pool you would even give it to where that would not be a problem. I just think as NBA fans, you just do that naturally. So
I think everything else is fine. Like the Rookie of the Year is cool. 6 Man of the Year is fine with me. I think Kobe White. Well, no, never mind. I'm tripping there. I think that one, the Defensive Player of the Year award for me and the MVP is the one that's like, oh my gosh, let's just get rid of these awards. I really don't really give a shit about any of the other awards, to be honest with you. But let's get rid of these awards, man. Let's just
I'm just saying if they got 1 and 2 right, that's what we should just get rid of this. If the 2 finalists you thought was gonna be finalists, they still got that right. You think having Bam over AD is so bad that this just null and voids everything else?
Yeah, only because kind of like you were saying, does this negate like we were saying earlier, does the end result negate the season that some of these other players had? And if the way that people interpret this is ultimately yes, like, oh, well, he doesn't have a DPOY, that doesn't matter. Everybody talks about Drew Holiday being the best defender since Scottie fucking Pippen. And I'm just, throwing a name out there, but that's what they say. So am I supposed to say that he's not a better defender than X, Y, and Z because he doesn't have a DPOY? Is Kobe not as good of a defender as MJ because he doesn't have a DPOY? Or LeBron that seat. Like, am I supposed to believe these things? Oh, because D Wade doesn't have an MVP, he's not as good as James Harden or Russell. Like, why do we believe these things because of the end result there? I don't get that.
I guess.
Yeah, I'm more on the side of Bezos if you get the top two, but I do think the ends justify the means until your argument in the sense of how interpreting these awards to really mean that much in conversation has always been stupid to me.